Hi everybody, welcome back to I Can View This All Day, and as ever I'm joined by my good pal James T. Keegan. Today we are talking about the Justice League of America TV pilot from 1997. This is going to be an interesting chat. Now James, before we get into it, a while ago you challenged me with finding a shitter film than Captain America.
Yes.
Mission accomplished?
Well, I mean, do you really count this as a film?
I count this as a steaming turd. That's what I count.
It's a bunch of like strange ideas just haphazardly splashed together with no real rhyme or reason, you know? It's bad. It's very bad. It's so bad. Like, shockingly.
Let's just get it out in the open. This, I think, is probably one of the worst superhero things I've ever seen. And I've seen some shit. This, for me, was just god-awful. Horrendous.
Just strange choices made throughout it. Having Green Lantern in a blue suit was strange. Nobody uses their superpowers really at all in the whole movie. Having like Barry is this weird out of work sponge, I guess. Having one of the characters like wants to be an actress. She's an aspiring actress. It's like, all right. It's like, it seems like they don't care about being superheroes at all. It's the human drama that we're being shown here.
And I guess this is one of the big points I want to talk about, is that none of these characters are recognizable in any shape or form to the comic book counterparts. I mean, that guy calls himself Guy Gardner. Anybody that's read a comic with Guy Gardner in knows he's a dickhead. This is a mismatch of Guy, Hal, Kyle. I don't even know what it was. It was awful.
He uses like the ring, 3 times in the movie? He like catches someone with a rope and then he show a chainsaw to like threaten someone?
He does a chainsaw, but the best bit is when he does like, I'm Mary fucking Poppins, y'all.
Oh,
and
yeah,
does his hand up and just disappears up into the sky.
And it's just the effects. Listen, it's a 90s low budget pilot, but like Jesus, the effects in this. I think the worst are the Atom, like the kind of he's going in to like move the cat's tail, or like the bit where he goes down and he does like a weird leaning under the tripwire.
Yeah, under the laser.
Yeah, for like 5 minutes or something. Like he's doing it. It's just bizarre.
For those that haven't seen this, what we're talking about is the 1997 CBS pilot for a Justice League show, and it's got an interesting assembled cast. Most of the actors in it never really amounted to much, or I'm not aware of. There's a couple who jump out. Anybody jump out for you, James?
Yeah, Miguel Ferreira is the villain. I always like seeing him in things, so I like to.
Yeah, he's the guy from RoboCop who's in Iron Man 3. He's what I would class as the big budget actor in this.
Yeah, he's the big name star.
Yeah, he's acting, in terms of the script he's got, is pretty good in this. You've got what I would class is kind of acting royalty in there in a horrendous part, and that is
the little simp kid.
No, not allowed to call him a simp.
He is a simp.
He's David Krumholtz.
Yeah, from Harold and Kumar, the Santa Claus. So like, yeah, just a terrible character.
I'm talking about the bloke from MASH. So MASH, massive American TV show, one of the main medics in that series, and he played the Martian Manhunter. Rather rotunded, kind of weird.
Yeah, he's not right for the role at all. Like, there's a bit where you see him head on, and like I think the suit looks fine for what it is. The mask looks fine, but then he like turns sideways and he's just round. And it's like, I'm not body shaming anybody, but like it just doesn't fit that character really to have that type of version.
Yeah, it's very out of place, and it's very, very noticeable, isn't it? Now, you mentioned the young lad. How bizarre to have some kind of stalking storyline going alongside with this teenage kid who at one point says he's saving his allowance. So he's obviously a kid.
But how old is he though? Because he says he's 22, but then that was a lie. And then, but is he 20? Because he's like, he works at this like.
Well, he's getting an allowance from his mum and dad, because he says at one point he's saving his allowance to buy her earrings or some shit.
Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, he's also dating a 16-year-old by the end of it. She's like, we hear. So yeah, I don't know.
It just felt very, very strange to me. The movie itself is dull as ditch water. You mentioned earlier about them not using the powers. The entire story really just felt like it dragged, and I was willing the thing to end.
I kept checking my time, how long far I was in, and it felt like never ending. Like I was like, I can't believe there's 40 minutes left of this. There's 20 minutes left. It's like an absolute slog to get through. Because like most superhero things are like broken up. There's like early-ish action sequence, then a mid-action sequence, then an ending action sequence. Does this have any action sequences in it at all?
The climactic battle is Green Lantern standing talking to the main bad guy on top of a
Yeah, and then he throws the suitcase off of it.
Yeah, and he goes, "No, caught you," and that it just ends.
Well, the weather wizard. Throughout it, he's like putting threatening, he's hijacking television screens and putting like threatening messages. He's a terrorist at this stage. They learn who he is in the first half of the movie. Do they not want to like go and arrest him? Like he starts showing up at your one's door and she's like, I don't want to see you. It's like, he's the bad guy. Get him. Like, what are you doing? Why are you letting him get away? Is he killed people at this stage?
I have no idea.
Yeah, he could have. Those are big hailstones. Very big hailstones. Yeah. Do you remember when they shoot a laser at the underwater base? What's that have to do? What's that have to do with weather at all? This is the weather wizard.
And the sub gets slightly hot, doesn't it? So very threatening.
Yeah.
Very threatening. Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say the action in this is cack, but it's also cheesy beyond belief. I mean, like nauseatingly bad. It's like almost like a weird mix of a sitcom kind of thing. You've got all the kind of the family elements where they're all sharing the house together, and
they all of them live there. Yeah.
I think so.
Why were they like being such pricks about the Flash is homeless and like we don't want to? They're all like, oh well, we have to go. It's like, let him live there, man. He can clean the dishes really fast.
You know, I'm a big Flash fan, and one of my biggest moans of the good old, I mean, Christ, it's like a masterpiece now. The Zack Snyder Justice League compared to this is that I didn't like the characterization of the Flash. In this, it has no reference point to any Flash comic I've ever read.
The irony of that is that out of all of these characters, because I don't know who Fire and Ice, I'm not really familiar with them. Guy Gardner, vaguely. Barry Allen's the only one who I could tell you what he does for a living in his actual life, like he's a scientist of some kind.
Yeah.
Whereas they decided to just throw that out the window here. There's multiple scientist characters in this. Why don't you have him being a scientist? Why is he the bum? Guy should have been the bum.
Flash does give us my favourite point in the entire movie, which is when they're at the god-awful party thing and the weather bloke goes home and you have Flash in his massive bright red costume in the broad daylight, kind of hiding behind bushes and shit. And it just looks fucking ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Absolutely. What did you think of the whole mockumentary thing? Because like it opens with like a 5-second thing of Ice talking. And it's like, oh, well, you've just spoiled the movie now because you just told us she doesn't get her powers until she doesn't join the team until the end of the movie. So like you just spoil that off the bat.
But that gives her probably her shining Oscar-worthy moment where she says, I never wanted to be a superhero. And it's like, fuck off. This should be for comic book fans, you know? And yes, the wider media. But as soon as you see that and you're introduced to Guy Gardner, a beloved dickhead character, and he's friggin' singing opera, it's like, what is this shit?
That was strange as well. The whole thing with his girlfriend was weird. We never find out why she was angry at him in the first place.
Just keep running out of that, I think. Costumes. What did you think of the costumes?
Awful. Horrendous. Like really, really bad. I mean, some of the worst I've ever seen, like genuinely. And like, I think on television, it's hard to get the costumes right. Like, I think CW has some iffy costumes as well. But like, the Atom is just this weird big, he's got these like red tights that are pulled up to his like waist and it's, you know, it's very bulbous. Fire's costume, I don't really know what that character, I assume, is it a green costume in the comics as well?
Yeah. She, out of all of them, her costume's probably the most like.
Feels like she should be orange, you know, because it's fire. Although I assume it's like this cool green flame in the
comics are flames green.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Ice is one at the very end, just like it was a ballet suit, like it just looked terrible. Yeah, Green Lantern is blue. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the very end there, I mean, I did laugh out loud at the kind of the awkward Avengers Assemble moment where they come out in the street and they all run towards the camera, but it's so awkward and kind of just out of just awful. I got real kind of Power Ranger vibes from this.
I think that's an insult to Power Rangers, to be honest with you, probably. And I've seen some bad Power Ranger stuff. You know, at least Power Rangers has some cool action and they do spins and shit. Like, nobody does that in this movie. Nothing happens in this movie, really, at all. There's no excitement. There's no intrigue.
I found some of the story elements of this really quite disturbing. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about the young lad who becomes basically a stalker halfway through it and he's following Fire all over. But then we get the bit where the think that Ice, this young lady, all she's done, bless her, is try to save a young lad and throws the lake. So the Justice League thinks she might be a superhero.
So they gas her. Yeah, kidnap her.
They gas her and drag her out of her fucking bed.
Because like that scene happens, you're like, oh shit, the bad guys got her. And then in the back of my mind, I was thinking it would be fucking hilarious if this was the Justice League. And sure enough, yeah, it was. What a strange choice.
I was surprised that this didn't get any more of a series.
No, I mean, not even remotely. Did this even come out? Did they ever put this out? Like,
yeah, know, it went out on one of the random channels, but it certainly wasn't a hit. Listen, James, I don't want to drag this out anymore because I feel a bit sick in my mouth just talking about it. Is this the worst film we've watched so far, or do you still think Captain America's worse?
See, they're both boring. They're both really boring. But Captain America had some action in it, at least. Like, barely, but some. Then I laughed at this one more, though. I thought this had a lot of more unintentionally funny moments.
Yeah, you weren't meant to.
But I also was falling asleep during parts of it, so that's probably a problem. But the level, I think. They're tied now.
What's worse in terms of being a superhero? Nicking the car.
Or gassing someone?
Gassing a sleeping woman.
I mean, they're both pretty bad, aren't they? They're not very superhero-esque things to do. No wonder Superman was in this movie.
Okie dokie. That's our rapid review of GLA 1997. Join us next time where we're going to be looking at this.
You've heard about him. You've read about him. Now, you'll see him in action.
Kill him.
No challenge is too great. No enemy is too strong. Spider-Man. Now, he lives.